long-term success comes from short-term embarrassment, right? We know that. You can't get to where you want to go without taking risks. And the thing about a risk is that there's a good chance it's not going to work out exactly the way that you wanted it to. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that time went to waste. You can turn these sort of failures into stepping stones to success. And that's what we see the best leaders do. It's not just a punchline or something fancy to say on stage. I see it over and over again. I've spent the past 10 years studying some of the most extraordinary people on the planet. And I asked them, what were the moments that really changed things for you, where you really felt like it was an inflection point for your career and for your life? And very rarely do they point to a win. Almost always they point to a loss. The way that I got into sort of this field is that I had started a couple of companies that did not work. And I got asked to speak at a conference called FailCon. It was one of my first keynotes. And so I'm literally up on stage talking about my failures. And I didn't realize that there was a reporter from the New York Times in the audience. And so you flash forward to a full-length article on failure with my face as the cover of this article. And
you're the face of failure.
I'm literally the face of failure for the New York Times. But not just that, Seth. This was 2013-ish. And so failure was one of those terms that, if you'll remember, people didn't really talk about. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like everybody was talking about failure. Mm-hmm. And this article came out right around that time. So it immediately goes viral. It goes so viral that there was a point in time when you could have Googled the word failure, like literally just searched for the word failure. And my face would have likely been one of your top search results. So I'm like, not just like the poster child for failure for the New York Times, I'm the poster child for failure for the internet.
Right. You're outranking Webster's.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 100% outranking any defunct companies or anything. I am the failure face. So, somebody who is really important to me encourages me to start using this article rather than running away from this embarrassment, lean into it. And the way that I did that is I started emailing all these people that I admired, people who had no idea who I was, from Oscar-winning filmmakers to celebrity chefs to coaches of professional sports teams, leaders of large iconic companies. And I would literally send them a link to this article. And I would say, hey, as you can see, I don't know what I'm doing. Would you be willing to give me some advice? And the response rate to that email was way, way higher than I thought it would be. Again, These were cold call emails.
Yeah.
But I think that they were, my suspicion is that these were all people who were used to people emailing them and saying, hey, look at all my successes. I was emailing them and saying, hey, I'm the poster child for failure. And they got a kick out of that. They responded to it. But not only that, Seth, what ended up happening was that those conversations that I was starting to have with these leaders were vulnerable. They were honest conversations. They were telling me about their failures. And when I would search for them on Google, I wasn't hearing these stories. I didn't even know these stories existed. And so the point being that I all of a sudden found myself sitting on this data set of anecdotes that were completely behind the scenes, never written about. So I started writing about them. I started writing articles, and those articles turned into books, eventually turned into a career in speaking. But now what I do is I travel the world and I meet with leaders. But what I really try to get at, again, is not just what the outside success looks like, but really ultimately, what are the habits that we're practicing internally in order to succeed externally, right? What are the things that we've learned, most likely through embarrassment, through failures, through setbacks, that have caused us to change our own approach, right? Even in a way that's not visible to other people, but it's an inner mindset. It's an inner, what I think of as head, heart, and hands. It's an inner way of sort of integrating our own energy so that we can be the best possible that we can be for the people around us. What are we doing internally in order to see that externally? And that's really been the basis of my keynotes. I take what I think are the most interesting, but also I think patterns of really high performing people all around the planet. And I try to unpack those in a really, really simple way for my audiences so that when they leave the keynote, they leave the session, they can go put those into practice immediately.